Okay, what I'm doing here today is I'm picking up a hand knitted rib onto a knitting machine. This is double knitting yarn, wool, 100% wool. It's not the cream, it's the red, the pink that I'm going to work with. And this has been hand knitted in a rib with an alternating rib cast on, and it's going to be picked up, and then I'm going to knit a glove from it. So 44 stitches here, so I've brought 44 needles, 22 either side of 0 out, and I've opened the latches up with a credit card, like that, to make it nice and easy, and now I'm going to pick them up. So I'm going to start from this end, and just remember to have the right side of the knitting away from you, so you're going to pick up into the purl side of the knitting, because that's the bit that, that's the side that shows on the machine. Doesn't really matter which way you go. I think I'll work from right to left. I don't think there's any difference. Just I'll be less in your way then, won't I? So pick up the end stitch, pull the needle out through it, next stitch, needle out through it. Now, I have to admit, the sort of thing that I tell people they shouldn't do, that's what I've done here. I knitted the other glove of this a year ago. Then I knitted the rib, and it sat there waiting to be done. So I have got the written instructions, I've got the pattern, and so we'll work through it together, and let's hope it matches its twin. I will find the twin at some point and show it to you, but I just want to get on with this right now, because the written instructions are very clear about what I do here. And I know what I'm doing here. I'm picking my stitches up. The yarn that I've knitted the waist with is actually a hand spun yarn that I had lying around, because I do hand spinning, and it was just an odd bit that I'd done. So it's actually totally the wrong gauge for machine or needle. But what's quite nice when you knit waist in on top that you want to pick up, see if you knit it in a bigger, thicker yarn than your original yarn, it actually opens the stitches up so you can see them easily to pick them up. It also helps if it's a contrast colour. This is a good contrast. If the glove works, I might even knit some for Christmas. It's quite a nice little pattern because it has you knit it on the machine, apart from the ribs, which I've done. You could knit them on a machine, but I don't have a ribber for this machine. I don't think there is one even for the mid-gauge machine that works with double knit. And I quite like knitting ribs by hand. For some reason I find it quite therapeutic, which is probably totally incomprehensible to most people. I seem to have missed some stitches somewhere, have I? No, I think I'm alright. They always get tight at the end, don't they? And one thing you can do is, if you find your end stitches really difficult to pick up, is you can start in the middle and work out to both ends, and then it is a bit easier. Rather like picking up onto linker, it's easier to do it that way as well. Last 2 to go, which are always fiddly. I'm trying not to pick the hand knit up as well. Open him out, get in there, that's it, there we are. So I pick them up, whip that needle out, undo my delicious hand spun yarn, which has got caught there, I think. Just whip him off and see what's happened there. Make sure I don't drop the stitch. Pop it back on. There you go. Come on, dear. That's it. Right. There we go. So that's my stitches picked up. So I need to hang some weights on there. And just check if there's any disasters happened. I don't think there are. Oh, look, I've got 2 on one there. Isn't that typical? Have I dropped one somewhere then? No. I'm going to pause the film whilst I pick that up, move them all along, and then I'll be back. So all picked up now, and that was my mistake. I just brought the wrong number of needles forward and I'd got picked up 2 in the middle. So I've now got my 44 stitches on there. My first instruction is to knit 4 rows in my yarn. So I've now got my my carriage at the right side where the yarn is. I've set my tension to 10, which is what the pattern is knitted at. And my first instruction is to knit 4 rows. 1, 2, 3. Actually, my 4th row is where I start my patterning, so it's knit 3 rows on my 4th row. So I've set my row counter, it's now a count to 3, and now I'm going to start my patterning. So I thought I'd show you what I'm actually going to knit. It's this glove here. Whoops, I'm not showing you very well, am I? This glove here. It's got a cable on the front, and you can see we can do the shaping here. And there's the hand knit rib that we're just hanging on the machine now. So that's what we're going to knit. Now this gets a bit complicated, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, this is going to be the straight, this is going to be the cable I'm going to put in, and then this is going to be the other bit. So I've counted it out and then put my tools somewhere. What I want to do is to count 14 in from this side. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Now that stitch there is going to be transferred, and I'm going to make a ladder which I will stitch up every so often. So that one goes out of action. And now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's my cable, and another stitch goes out. Another stitch is transferred. So I want another ladder there. So it should be 8 in the middle now, if I've counted that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for my cable. These stitches can stay there for a minute. They're just going to be knitted. I think I'm right there. Yes, I am. Oh, it's complicated, this. Right. So now, now I can do my cable, except I think I probably messed that up a bit slightly there. Perhaps I should have transferred my stitch out earlier on. I might drop them down actually. So I'm going to drop those 2 and take those down 1 row and do my crossover 1 row down. I could unpick the whole row of course, but hey, you know. And now I'm going to just knit that by hand, which will make it slightly loose, but it will give me my ladder, that's fine. And the same over here. This is called cheating, you know, but it serves the purpose. I just don't want to have my crossover on the same row as my cable crossover, because it will just get very tight. So I'm taking that transfer for my ladder 1 row down by just dropping the stitches, and then working the 1 row down, undoing them. There's 2 stitches, transferring those 2 there, and then knitting that one by hand to make it slightly loose, but it'll be fine. Okay, because it will even out over everything at this stage. So now I've got my ladder set up, and I'm going to do my cable here. And for my cable I need 2 double transfer tools, and right, okay, it's the sequence is these 2, needles, and these 2 needles come out, both come off, and they come off. It's quite difficult doing it at a distance as I'm doing it here. Normally I crouch over my machine to do cables, but I'm trying to let you see what I'm doing. And then these 2 go outwards to those needles. And these 2 go inwards to those 2. which is going to drive me mad. Not opening these, I should have done it in slightly different order. There we are. That's the first crossover. And now I need to do the second crossover because it's a double cable. And now my crossover's happened. I'm at some point going to have to chain these up, so I might decide to do that now. I'll do it now just to show you what I'm talking about. So I go down here, and because I don't want to have a sort of tight hole there, I'm going to twist my stitch. So I'm going to go in from the top of that ladder, twist that tool round, and then catch the first ladder and pull it through, because I'm doing these up as a reverse stitch to outline the cable. Okay, so then you pull it through from this side. You have your latch tool on this side of the knitting and you pull it through, but that little twist will tighten up the bottom there, hopefully. I mean, it's a bit pointless really, I haven't done that, but it's just showing you what I'm going to do, because it's going to fall down anyway, because I'm not going to secure it, but that's how I'm going to chain it up. If I don't get around to doing it on this video, you'll see why I've left that there. So I'm going to unwind that now again and let it just drop down, it doesn't really matter. But that's what the purpose of that ladder is, to do a chain like that. And that's what I'll be doing at the very end when I've done all the crossovers. But you can see how it's going to make a rib like it has on here, the rib edge, which is rather nice. But you don't need to do it now. I just did it to show you. So my next instruction is to do another cable. Oh, lucky me. Right, okay, so we do another cable. So we'll start off over here. Bring the needles out. Transfer those stitches to that one. And then the middle ones go out. And the outer ones go in. And that's the way the cable works. And I must remember that, mustn't I, for the next one. There we go. Where's my fork on? There we are. And these ones. So the middle ones go outwards first. And these go in on those ones. And that will give me that little double cable. Let's have a look at it. So I'm just going to bring those needles out to make sure they knit. It's always a good idea. I might even bring the end ones out here as well to make sure they knit. So that's that cable working here now. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've now got to row 19. So now I work another crossover. I shall probably speed up. And I go inwards. My next instruction is it is at row 23 to start shaping my thumb on this side. So with a fully fashioned increase, I'm going to increase it over 16 rows, I think it is. Yeah, so my instruction is to increase 1 stitch every row for 16 rows. So I increase 16 stitches out there to make my thumb shaping. I'm using the triple transfer tool for that. But I've still got to remember to carry on with my my cablings. My next cable is at row 28. I'm on row 23 now. Oh, I should knit one more row. Use my triple transfer tool and increase 1 stitch fully fashioned on that edge. So bring a needle forwards, make sure they're all open, increase my stitch fully fashioned. Now if I do it just like that, I will end up with a hole, but I want to fill that hole in, so I'm going to take the heel of the stitch and put it on that needle. If it would open its latch, I would. That's it. So that's my first increase, and I'm keeping an eye on my row counters. That's row 24. Increase another stitch. It's quite a sharp increase here. Bring the needle forward, open its latch, push them back, pull them forward, and try and open the latch as you take them off. Not in the way, am I? No. And now lift that stitch under there to fill the hole in. There we go. 25. Increase another one. Fill that hole in. Somewhere I know I've got a triple transfer tool with a single end, but I don't know where it is. 26. Fill the stitch in. 27. One more. Whoops. This yarn's very splitty for some reason. Quite know why. I don't remember being like this last time, but it clearly is. Oh, now it's split all the stitches. Let's just pop those back on there. Just hate it for a moment. Put that one out there. I might better do it with singly on this one actually. But never mind. Fill it in with the heel of the stitch. Sorry, I had the tool in my mouth, so I couldn't actually speak properly with the transfer tool there. I've dropped this stitch too. I've split this stitch, so let's just tidy him up. I hate when you get a split stitch on your final piece, and then pick the heel up and fill that in. These make very nice gloves, actually, I have to say. I'm very pleased with the pattern. So there's that's that. And now I've got to do my crossover, because I've got to my beloved cable. So let's bring those. If I had another weight, it would be helpful. Just see if I've got them in the box. No, I haven't. Never mind. In the middle of demo, I'm not going to stop. So take those two out there, and those two into the middle. See, what I'm doing there is I'm pulling down with my hands on the fabric, so that it pulls the stitches tight, which does make it easier to make the transfer. But I've forgotten to flip the things open. The needle's open. I've dropped a stitch. Great. Don't listen to what I say. Let's pick that one up. Just pop those back on there for the minute. Oh, you're seeing all the mistakes today, aren't you? But this is what it's like. It's never perfect, as we all know. And if it is, there's probably something wrong. Is your hand? Like that. Knit them by hand to salvage those. That one needs knitting as well by hand. You never have enough hands when you machine knit, do you? Always something in the way. There we go. Right. So now I can transfer those four, hopefully. Let's bring them forward. These two. And then these two. And I've forgotten which order I'm doing this in. The middle goes out to there. And now it goes into the middle. Okay. So that's, I did an increase on that row, didn't I? Yes, so I do cross. Increase over here. Bring the needle forward. Increase those three out. Without dropping any, I hope. And pick up that loop underneath to fill the hole in. Having a little trouble picking up that loop. There it is. Picked up the wrong one. Okay. Take two. So we're now at row 23, and I've got to start increasing here for the thumb shaping. So I'm going to use the triple transfer tool, and I'm going to take do a fully fashioned increase on this side with 3 stitches. Take them all out, one needle, And I'm just going to leave that needle to pick up, because on the original one I've left it like that as well. If you try and pick them up, it becomes, on every row it becomes very, very tight. And I have to keep a track of my row count because my next cable is at row 27. 26, 27. Now I do my next cable. Bring these four forward. I take the middle ones out to the side. The side comes into the middle. I'll put a weight under there for a minute. If you pull down slightly on your knitting, it really helps. And I'm trying to open the hooks as I take the stitches off. Doesn't always work. A little wiggle. Bring them forward. Move my because I've realised I've forgotten to do my increasing here, haven't I? Okay, I'm not going to go back. I will adjust that and then I'll come back and find you at this point. Okay, so I've sorted that out now. So I've now sorted out my increasing, which was wrong. And my crossover is now worked. And I've increased the stitch on that row. And I need to increase one on this end because I'm doing it every row. It's getting quite stiff up here. Doesn't really want to work, but it will do. It'll be fine when it's off the machine. Take those three like there. Okay, and bring that one forward. Work my increase on this end. Bring them forward. Work my increase. Just going to bring those forward to make sure they work. My next crossover is at row 36. And I finish my decreasing at row, I think it's 39. So I work another increase. So increasing every row, it's really tight. Remind me to do this with a single transfer tool, not the triple one every time. Bring one forward. I can bring those out to make sure they knit. 52. So let's try doing it with a single transfer tool and see if it's any easier. Probably won't be, but it might be. One, and take that one out, and then take that one out. Maybe it's a bit easier actually with these needles, these plastic bits on this machine. 3. 34. And my weight's up under there. 45. Right, now I'm due to do another crossover. And this is my little bit of increasing on the edge there. So I should have increased by now. Where was that first one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's back. That's right. I've got another 2 increases to do. That's right. So I'll do my crossover now. In the middle here. I'm going to put a weight up under there to make it easier to work. Am I done? Bring these 4 forward. Outside goes. Am I going that way? No, that one goes there, and that one goes there. That's right. Oh, it does my head in. I hope I've done these all right. I should be annoyed if I've got an odd crossover in there somewhere. No, that's right. They're all going. Oh, it's the middle. That's right. Okay, bring these ones forward just to make sure they knit cleanly. And do an increase on the edge here. Which will take me to 15 increases, which is nearly where I want to be. To make the shaping for the ball of the thumb, underneath the thumb, the ball of the underneath your thumb. I don't know what you call it. Yeah, it is the ball of the thumb, isn't it? There we go. And that's row 36. Dropped a stitch there. That's helpful, isn't it? Yeah, 36. One more increase. Just going to knit that one by hand. Has it failed to knit itself? Actually, I'm just going to work out what's happened there. That's what's happened. Just going to knit this by hand. So I've now got back to where I was. I've got my increased thumb over here and my cabling. My next cable is at 44. I'm at row 40 at the moment. Now I start to hold my, to knit my thumb with holding. So I need to, I can either knit this bit first or my thumb first, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to hold 18 stitches here for my thumb. So let's do that. So carriage is this side, let's do that. Let's do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 stitches. There, that's going to be my thumb. I'm going to carry on knitting the top part of my hand, but I must remember I did this at row 40. Make a note of that. And I'm going to knit straight up now. Do my next crossover at row 44. So I've now reached the top of my hand part of the glove, and I will take this off onto hand knitting needles in order to hand knit a rib. I'm knitting the maximum size of my tension anyway, so I will just leave that there for the moment, but put it on hold. And now I'm going to start knitting my thumb. So put these to hold. And I'm also going to have to chain my rib stitch up as well before I take them off onto a hand knitting needle, and put my stitches back here. I'm going to lift them back. Just this machine doesn't really like going back from hold to knitting, so I'm going to be absolutely safe and put them back. And I'm going to knit, I'm just going to check my pattern, I think it's 14 rows straight to knit a thumb. And then I will just bind that off with a latch tool bind off. The yarn here at the end, I'm not sure you can see it, but over here on the end here, I've tied off, because I'll use that for hand knitting my rib. And over here, I'm going to work the thumb. Let's just turn it a bit so you can see that more clearly, possibly. There we go. You can probably see it a bit more clearly now. So my thumb, I need some yarn, some new yarn in my machine, because I've kept that end for hand knitting. I'll just thread that up. Okay, whoa, not wet my jumper. And oh, I didn't check, I think it's 10 rows. I'll take my row counter back. Make sure it's on hold. And just check my rows. I think it's 14 rows. I'll just double check on the garment itself. 12 rows. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I'm going to do a latch tool bind off. If I can find my latch tool. Oh. Okay. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to knit a loose crochet cast off. So I'm going to pick off the stitches and crochet through the needles with it to make it nice and loose. Oops. I would be if I could. For fuck's sake. So I'm going to do very loose bind off here so that it's not doesn't constrict my thumb. So I'm going to hand knit a very loose row and then work a latch tool cast off through them. Because I'm working at my maximum tension on the machine anyway, so I can't really knit a row that is looser with the carriage, so I'm going to knit it loose by hand and then work a latch tool through it. If it isn't loose enough, I'll consider another way, but let's see how this one goes. This is what I did last time. According to my notes. So let's take it all the way back to there. And we'll see how that goes. I'm making them very loose. Whoops, I just split that yarn. I hate it when the yarn splits. I loathe it when the yarn splits. Okay. There we go. Right. Now let's just hook that around something and start my bind off. Without splitting my yarn. Some hope. It's the trouble with hand knitting yarns on a machine. It's not spun quite tight enough. They've gone for loft as opposed to machines want a nice smooth finish. Slightly tighter twist works better. I'll get that out. That's a bit of a tongue twister. There we go, nearly there. So get this cast off, and then my next step is to chain up my rib stitches next to my cables. And then I can take it off on, so I haven't got any scissors. I think I said in translating hand and machine knitting, do not break your yarn, but I have unfortunately done that. Okay, so that's a loose-ish cast off, should allow me to get my thumb through. If not, I can undo it, and I'll leave the end on there and I can undo it and redo it by hand. That's it. Okay, make sure those are out the way. Now I'm going to go back and chain up these rib stitches. I'd started one, I might as well go back at him and work up from there. actually see what I'm doing. Can you, sorry? Go down a bit. Just angle the camera down a tiny bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm chaining up the rib stitches. I find if I put my finger behind it, opens the ladder up, and it means I can put it nice and tight. And not, I mean, I don't put it nice and tight, but I can keep it taut. Tight is not the right word. Taut. You can see what I'm doing, and the stitches, the ladder is pulled taut, so it's easy to pull through the tool. Oh, it'd be helpful if I hadn't done that though. Let's just grab that in there. I'd forgotten I'd pulled these forward. Shouldn't have done that, should I? Got ahead of myself. Just pick these up. Little dears that they are. Last one. If I had a garter bar, I'd stick it there. I'll put some of these on. I'm not using that one on now. I'll put one of those on the end there. Something coming off. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm putting a transfer tool on the end there. Stop the stitches coming off, and I'll put one on the end there to stop them coming off too. It just helps stop them come off. Yeah. And I can carry on chaining up now, hopefully. Although I may pull them off a bit in the middle now. In my luck. And now this can go on the needle, the empty needle. Right. And that's my rib chained up. And I'll do the other side and get back to you. So there is the piece finished now. There's the thumb there, and the increasing out to the thumb, which goes around the ball of the hand. This will be on the back of the hand, and then I'm going to take this off onto a hand knitting needle, and it will have a little rib knitted on it before it's cast off. And here, if I could find something here, in this gap here, so you don't rip it, there's a little gusset hand knitted in, a little diamond shaped gusset hand knitted in there between the thumb and the hand. So it's a combination of hand and machine knitting, yeah, so you know how you can work with the two together. Great. I'm exhausted now. I'll post a picture of the finished one when I haven't got a hand knitting needle to take this off yet, so I'll have to do that later. I'm going to take these stitches off on waste yarn and then pick them up onto hand knitting later. So I'm going to put a bit of waste yarn in my carriage and knit a few rows in an odd bit of waste yarn that I've got to hand, just so that I can take it off the machine and pick it up later onto a hand knitting needle. That should be enough. Now I'll just knock it off the machine and go and do some hand knitting. And there it is, the finished piece with its thumb. Fits on the hand like that.